welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing some last minute revision tips for GCSEs, and these are tips that I either used or I wish I had known about at the time of my own exams. Exam season is approaching fast and it's easy to feel overwhelmed or constantly feel underprepared and feeling like you haven't done enough revision to ace these exams. And the main thing to note is that it's not just you, everyone is in the same boat and feeling like this even if they don't show it. Stick around and watch throughout the video as I've got some bonus tips embedded here and there, as well as the actual secrets that I'm about to reveal and how to conquer exams. So a bit about me. The subjects that I did at GCSE were maths, English literature, English language, biology, chemistry, physics, further maths, computer science, geography, business and German. And I managed to get 10 grade 9s at GCSE, which puts me at the top 1% of the country according to the statistics found on the government website, and I'm very grateful for these results. And I believe that there isn't a lot of time left till GCSEs, so without further ado, let's get started with the video. Tip number 1 is practicing. Yes, we're starting with the most obvious tip. I promise we'll get onto the secrets later, but this tip's importance shouldn't be dismissed. Let me let you in on a secret. Questions repeat, and this is definitely true for some subjects more than others. So for English, there might be overlapping themes. For example, fear in Macbeth could be looked at as the same as guilt in Macbeth. Other subjects like maths and science, they do repeat questions, and sometimes they have the exact same mark scheme each year. Try and do as many questions that you can get your hands on, and there's so many resources available on the internet for GCSEs, so just try and do as many questions as you can. Also, even if the questions on a past paper don't repeat, past papers in general will give you an idea of what to actually expect on the exam, and they can help you identify the areas specifically where you need to improve. They will also give you a clue on how you're doing with the speed and the timing of the paper, which brings me on to the second tip. Tip number 2 is timing strategies. For some subjects more than others, if you don't have a vague idea of how you will time yourself for each question, it's really easy to slip up and then leave little to no time for the questions later on. The subjects I personally used a timing strategy in was definitely English literature and English language. With countless essay questions that you have to write in a short amount of time, these two subjects especially need a timing strategy. For example, in English language paper 2, where you might be asked to write a speech or an article or a letter at the end of the paper, I did this first, and for the first 40 to 45 minutes, I tried to just complete this and get it out of the way, and once this was done, I started working on the rest of the paper that was at the start. There are many English language and literature strategies available online, or you can even ask your English teachers, or you can make your own one up depending on what works best for you. Although I didn't take history, I also believe that history is a very essay-heavy subject, so these tips could apply to that too. For other subjects, it's important to keep an eye on the time every so often, because the 2 hours that you might get at the start can easily turn into the invigilator saying 5 minutes remaining. Subjects that I time myself on just the longer questions, say 9 to 12 markers, were business and geography, and this is because the longer questions in these subjects you can either take forever planning or you can get easily carried away with. In fact, for geography, what I did was I did the 9 markers straight away, and then I did the 6 markers, and then I started from the beginning rather than just doing the paper in its order. Anyways, another side/bonus tip for this, let's say you only have 15 minutes to revise on a particular day somehow. Even doing a 12 marker, timing yourself for 15 minutes, or doing 2 6 markers and marking them will help you boost your grade instead of just scrolling on your phone for those 15 minutes. It's really important to make use of all the time that you have. Tip number 3 is predictions. Some people don't really understand the power of predictions. Whether that be your own predictions or predictions online, even if they're wrong, they give you practice for the exam. So it's better to be safe than sorry. So let me give you a bit of a backstory back in for my GCSEs, which was last year, and I tried predicting for many of my subjects, such as even the geography 9 markers. And for some of these I was correct in, many more weren't correct, but one that I especially remember was for my Jekyll and Hyde English Literature paper 2, and I was looking at all the previous past papers to see what had and hadn't come up yet, because from my understanding, English literature, they rarely repeat themselves. So I was looking at the extract, and one which hadn't come up yet was chapter 7, which is kind of an important chapter, where one of the characters called 𝐻𝐼𝐻, he's walking near the house of his friend Jekyll, and he's trying to get him to come down and do some exercises with him, when all of a sudden his friend Jekyll turns into Hyde, and he looks at it through the mirror in his room. And it's kind of an important chapter because 𝐻𝐼𝐻 realizes that Jekyll is Hyde, and that revelation finally comes through. Anyways, at the time I thought this was a really good scene to analyze, so I was very surprised that it hadn't come up yet, and I watched loads and loads of videos of analysis on this with all the annotations, and I walk into the exam room, sit down, open my test up, and bam, it's the exact same extract. And when I tell you I felt like a genius, it was unbelievable. The thing with predictions is that you have to look at every single past paper, including the specimen papers as well, and basically cross off that coming up, or whatever themes or extract that it had on. Do practice the ones that haven't come up yet a lot, but don't spend too long predicting, and make sure to revise a little bit on things that have already come up because they could still repeat. Tip number 4 is to stay in 100% focus. These times are important in terms of your revision, and it's easy to get distracted after being in study mode for a long time, but genuinely do try your hardest to study, but also take short breaks in between. Bonus tip, I like to use phone app blockers, so where you set a timer and you can't go on any of the apps on your phone, and this does help. And also secondly, changing up your location every now and then, so instead of just studying on your desk in your room, going to a library every now and then. Honestly, this is something I wish I did more of, because although I did focus and study a lot, I rarely took breaks, which is not a good thing, and it did lead to me being slightly burnt out in the half term in between, although I did kind of overcome this quickly. Another thing I wish I did more of is sleep, because getting 8 to 9 hours every day is really important, and if you can get even just 6 hours on a day, it's better than staying up and pulling an all-nighter. Me personally, I didn't stay up or pull all-nighters, but I didn't get much sleep, which is not good. My routine on an exam day was sleeping at around 10 or 11 p.m. and then setting my alarm and waking up around 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. simply because I felt like I could do more revision. And it's this fear of being underprepared and not feeling as confident for the exam which makes you do these things, but make sure that you are getting your sleep, because this is something that I definitely wish I did more of. Tip number 5 is for when you're in the exam hall itself, and it's to stay calm and collected. It's definitely easier said than done, but try not to think about the exam too much. Try not to focus on how much revision you've done, whether that be a lot or not a lot. One little bonus tip that I did for my exam is to try and prepare yourself for the first question. And by this, what I mean is to try and slightly look through it from the front page, because it's quite transparent. And it sounds hilarious, but it actually does work, and you are able to read the first question sometimes. And another bonus tip that I will give you guys is to switch up your pencil case slightly. So by this, I don't mean to reorganize it every day, because that's a bit of waste of time, but to add in something if you want to. Now, what I mean by this is, for example, in my own situation, I didn't necessarily believe in horoscopes that intensely, but basically, if you are aware, with some horoscopes you get a lucky color of the day, and what I would do is I would pack something of that color in my pencil case, for example like a highlighter or something, because why not? I personally did this to give myself a little bit of joy before every test, and seeing a pop of color in my black clear pencil case, I guess it did help, and who knows, maybe it did bring me some luck. Tip number 6 is to not overthink about your exams after you've done them, and the easiest way to say this is that you can't change what you have put after you've done the exam, and everyone finds it scary, everyone does this, and it's so incredibly simple to keep on constantly dwelling on what answer you put, especially because as soon as you come out of the exam hall, everyone is asking each other, you know, what did you put for question 10 or what did you put for question 5? And you can engage in these conversations if you think it would bring you a bit more relief or satisfaction, especially if you all got the same answer or if no one got it, which is equally as relieving because it shows that everyone is in the same boat. But I would say to allow yourself at maximum 15 minutes to think about the exam and then move on and start revising for the next exam. Now, what kind of helped for me was searching up on Google, Twitter, GCSEs 2022. Now, obviously, if you're watching this now, it would be 2023. And I don't think that you have to create a Twitter account for it, although I'm not 100% sure about now because when I did this, I didn't create one. But I really enjoyed reading other people's memes or relatable things that they found from the exact same exam. So what I would do is I would just search up the hashtag and then put maths paper 1 or just maths, and then as soon as you refresh it, it comes up with the funniest memes ever. Limit yourself to 15 minutes, as I said before, though, because it's easy to get carried away reading these tweets, but at the same time it does calm you down a bit. Tip number 7 is to utilize your resources, and I think that for many exams you can do this, but for example for maths, your calculator may be more powerful than you think, and there's so many videos available on the internet showing you things that you could do on the calculator that you didn't think were even possible. So for instance, for the GCSE calculator for maths, when you have the prime factor trees and you have to find the prime factors, I believe there's like a button called like fact or something which will show you how to do that. Also, utilizing your teachers. So for me, I think I probably gave over 20 practices in a timed manner to my English teacher for marking, and her feedback for English literature and language is what helped me succeed in those subjects. I also did this for business, where I did longer mark questions, such as picking out, for example, a 12 marker and doing that in exactly 12 minutes. And then similarly, I gave this to my business teacher for marking, and he would give me back the question with feedback as well. I would say with teachers, it's really important to do these for like essay writing subjects or subjects where you don't really have a definitive mark scheme. So obviously for maths, you have a mark scheme showing you all the steps, and for science, for example, you have all the points that the person should have written. But for subjects like English literature and English language, there is no set mark scheme, and it just depends on how well you've written things and the quality of your language. So, which is why I would give it to my English teacher rather than marking it myself and giving myself a false grade. A bit of a bonus tip, but tip number 8 is to keep a diary or write about each exam as soon as you finish it. And I'm so happy that I did this throughout my GCSEs, because now I have a little summary that I can go back and read if I want to, and I type these all up on my notes app. And basically, as soon as I would be done with the exam in the same 15 minutes that I've talked about previously, I would write about, firstly, how well I think I did, things I did well, things I know I completely flopped, and also how well I felt, like how confident I felt throughout the exam, and also after the exam as well. So for exams where I had finished and checked my answers and I still had some time, I would count up as a worst case scenario how many marks I might have gotten, which I know many people do, and I did this to make myself feel better, especially if it was a bad exam. So to give you guys a bit of an example, I'll quickly read out what I typed up after my German listening and reading exam from my MacBook. So, listening went overall smooth, and there were around 4 questions I might have got wrong, but the last page I forgot we had to write in German and I wrote in English. When the last question was being repeated, I quickly changed it, but I don't know if I conjugated C properly. Reading was so bad though. I hated it. I guessed most of them, but I didn't know many words. Hopefully grade boundaries are low, which is what I'm seeing on Twitter. So as you can kind of see, I kind of relieved myself from Twitter, because seeing everyone saying that that was a bad exam made me not feel alone about my opinion on the exam. So that is just one example of all my exams that I wrote about and stuff. Now, I really do hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video, and I may, if I have the time, post more GCSE videos, especially the subject specific ones, because I really do want to post like videos on specifically just tips for like science, for example, maths. And I hope to do that soon if I do get some more time on my hands. But I really do hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video. Good luck for exams, you will do amazing. And also, just a bit of a motivation thing. I would say for most people, from their mocks, they definitely improve. So don't worry too much if you would think that you were thinking that your mocks were really bad, or if you just feel like you could have done better in your mocks, because in your exams, for most people that I've seen, they have definitely improved. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!